Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be there. I was kindly invited by the Konkaway team to present the last version of our battery study. But I'm not sure this is my bio. Maybe, does it work? No, it's not the right presentation. Sorry for that. This battery study was launched, in fact, back in summer 2021, after that Fit for 55 was voted in Europe. Obviously, Fit for 55 is calling for a massive electrification of passenger cars and light commercial vehicles. And this massive electrification is translating into a strong battery demand. And then the idea, the big question that arises, will we be able to roll out battery cell production capacity as fast as the surge in battery demand up to 2035? So typically that's the... I'm sorry, Alain, but the presentation is not there. Okay. And so what we did, we have developed a granular bottom-up approach to forecast battery demand and to forecast battery cell production on a worldwide basis. For demand, we have taken not only battery demand for light vehicles, but we have taken about 10 application markets, heavy duty, buses and coaches, energy storage system, consumer electronics, off-road vehicles, maritime, and also medical system. And so for each application market, we have developed a forecast for the demand up to 2035. On the production side, we have built a database. So we have looked at every single gigafactory in the world producing battery cells. So we have taken gigafactories in production, in construction, and announced. And so we have forecasted the production. So for each gigafactory, we have assessed and challenged the capacity rollout. We have challenged as well the various risks because it's very different if a new gigafactory is being built by a legacy player, mainly Asian ones, or by a newcomer like in Europe and to some extent in North America. And so we have taken into account capacity utilization because when you run a gigafactory, people are not using 100% of capacity. Typically, the best player, they use 80 to 85%. And some of them will tell you that even they can reduce it because there is a compromise between throughput and scrap rate. The scrap rate in this industry is very high. And we have seen today that IFPN has given some number, but it's really optimistic. We have higher figures, and we have talked to many experts to discuss that. And typically, we have taken assumption on the scrap rate to discount the announced capacity to come up with something which is a realistic forecast. For the demand, we had a similar approach. For example, for vehicles, we have screened the new product plan of each OEM. So we took every single model. We have described the battery pack characteristic. And so not only we have taken pure BEVs, but we have taken all the hybrid vehicles, and we have taken as well into account fuel cell electrical vehicle, because there is a battery as well, high performance battery. It's smaller than a BEV, but it's part of demand as well. And so the battery pack has been described in terms of size, meaning power, battery chemistry which is used, cell format, and we have looked at where sorry? Okay, thank you. So now it's working normally, so you have the first page I was mentioning. And so once we did this, we have looked at the diversity for each model and the associated platform, because as you know, a model can have several battery pack sizes. And then we have taken the forecast in terms of production volume for each model. And we have taken global data, it's the new name of LMCA, because this is one of the most commonly accepted forecasts for the production of vehicle. And so we were able to derive the demand per OEM, per region, and after we have consolidated the demand from all OEMs. And we did it for passenger cars, light commercial vehicles, heavy duty, buses and coaches, and so on. So it's a very granular approach. It's a lot of work, but it's robust. And so when you see this, the first chart, you have global battery demand on a worldwide basis up to 2035. And you can see, sorry for that. You can see that the growth is impressive. It's not too many industries will face such a growth for such a long period of time. Typically today, the demand in 2033 it's a bit less of 1 terawatt-hour, and it will grow up to 3.3 terawatt-hour in 2030, and up to 5.2 terawatt-hour in 2035. As you can see, we have a breakdown by application market, and a light vehicle is going to account for roughly 80% of battery demand on a worldwide basis. The next two application markets are energy storage system, because when you roll out significant renewable capacity for electricity production, it's more and more intermittent. You need to balance the grid and you need to store energy. And so that's why the battery, it's one option to store energy coming from renewables. And after you have truck and buses. The other segments, they are much smaller. And so typically when you look at this, demand in the future for battery will be clearly driven by light vehicles. On this page, this is the demand split by region, and not a surprise, China has the strongest demand. It's the case today, and why? Because this is not only the largest automotive market in the world, 1/3 roughly, but it's also the largest BEV market in the world for a few years. So the share of China in terms of demand will decrease to roughly 1/3. And after, you see the impressive growth of Europe in terms of battery demand. Not a surprise, if we want to meet the target in 2035, there is a surge in battery demand. And North America will be the third region. And if you take these three regions, you have 80% roughly of battery demand. So now I'm zooming on light vehicle. So here, this is the production forecast, which is made by LMCA up to 2035. And as you can see, there is and the split is by powertrain mix. And as you can see on this page, we should have globally It's not for Europe only, it's globally. BEVs will have a 35% market share in 2030, and it will increase up to 50% in 2035. And you have roughly 20%, which is the hybrids vehicle. For light vehicle, the demand for fuel cell electrical vehicle is very small, so it has been included in the other category. When you look at the split of demand by battery chemistries, today you have 3 dominant lithium-ion battery chemistries. Initially it was NCA developed by Japan, mainly Panasonic and Sanyo, and which is used by Tesla mainly. Then you had NCM developed by Korea for more than 1 decade. And the third one is LFP, which was pushed and developed by China. So today the dominant technology is NCM, because that's the most dense in terms of energy, but it's the most expensive one. And but since Korea was 100% NCM until recently, that Europe 3 years ago decided to go to NCM only. It will stay the dominant technology until 2035, but you see 2 additional technologies which offer a better compromise in terms of cost, energy density and safety. And these 2 technologies, it's LFP and LMNO. And these last 2, they will account for roughly 20% of demand. And another important point on this chart is that, again, technology diversity is a must. We should not impose one technology. And if you zoom on market segments, you will see that OEM will select 1 or 2 technologies to cover this segment with very specific need. And if they go in another segment, they will take other technologies because they better fit with the segment requirements. If I move to heavy duty, so we have a similar picture in terms of production forecast, except that, of course, the volume is much lower than passenger cars and light commercial vehicle, because we are not talking about 100 plus million units produced per year, but we are more in the range of 4 million plus. And of course, the share of electrified truck is much lower today than for light vehicle. It will grow fast, but the market share of electrified technology will be smaller than for light vehicle. Of course, it's a global picture. For Europe, the picture is different because you have a strong push on electrified vehicle. So when you see, we have zoom on the battery demand for trucks by region. So you see the growth is even more impressive than cars, of course, because we are starting from a lower baseline. Not a surprise, China is always dominating because there is a strong fleet of electrical buses and electric trucks in the China market. And you will end up with something which is 350 gigawatt-hour of battery demand globally, which is 10% roughly of light vehicle battery demand. So yes, it's growing. Yes, it will be big, but it will be only 10% of light vehicle battery demand. So that's for demand. Now, if I move to the production, so on this slide we have forecasted capacity announcement by the player up to 2035, And you remember we did it with a bottom-up approach, gigafactory by gigafactory. So when you look at this, it's very impressive, similar growth. When you look at the number in 2030 and 2035, you feel very optimistic because you have capacity announcements which are bigger than battery demand. So far so good. But when we discount the capacity announcement, the picture is completely different, because typically we will downgrade capacity announcement by 1.5 terawatt-hour in 2035, which is very big. And again, the reason is capacity is not used 100%. The scrap rate is very high. And by the way, we have taken different assumptions for legacy players and newcomers. Newcomers, typically, they start with a 50 to 60% scrap rate the first year, and they will take 5 years to go down to 10%. Whether a legacy player for a new plant, they start with 30-40% of scrap rate, and they will take 4 years to go down to 5%. So when you look and we zoom at by region, so you see the discount we have taken between capacity announcement and realistic available production. Not a surprise again, we have taken lower discount for China, because China has 2 decades of battery cell production experience. It's not the same story for Europe and North America. In North America, we have taken a larger discount than in China, but smaller than in Europe. And I will explain why, because it's different players in North America than in Europe. And so now when we take into account demand and supply, and so you see that China, so you have the yellow bars, it's the realistic available battery production. The pink bar, it's the demand for light vehicle, and the dark blue bar is the total demand for battery or application market. And so China has more than enough battery cell production to meet its demand both for light vehicle and for all other application markets. In North America, it's rather balanced for light vehicle, but there is a small deficit if you take into account total battery demand. And in Europe, not only it's not enough for light vehicle battery demand, but it's getting worse if you take into account all application markets. So we have summarized the gap between supply and demand in this table. So you see the 3 main regions, China, Europe, North America, and on top you have worldwide demand. So with the current vision of battery demand and the current forecast we are making on a realistic available production, there will be deficit at Europe and North America level. China will have a growing surplus, and so which means that China will keep on exporting battery cells elsewhere. And globally, we have a deficit which is growing and which should reach like 1 terawatt-hour by 2035. Of course, the industry will adjust, because if the battery demand happens to be that strong with this figure, I'm sure that some players, either legacy one or newcomers, will add additional capacity. But again, one big message we have listened today, speed is crucial, and clearly if we keep the same pace on installing capacity for battery cell, we are not going as fast as needed, so we need to accelerate. There are many roadblocks to install battery capacity. A gigafactory producing battery cell, it's almost as complex as a semiconductor plant. You need to operate in a super clean environment. You are very sensitive to meteorological conditions, and so that's very complex to operate. And when you look at all the projects, including the Asian one, most projects are late in terms of installing a gigafactory. I mean, building the gigafactory and installing the first production line. Of course, the Asian ones are much faster than the European one, but typically they are sometimes late as well. We have a big issue in Europe because we have a shortage of battery production equipment, and our industry is not as good as the Asian one. The best production equipment is in Asia, mainly in China, in Korea, and in Japan. Not only they are less expensive, but they are more productive. So it's an issue here. The scrap rate, I have mentioned this already. We need to hire, to train workers to operate battery gigafactories. It's a very complex job. And to give you an order of magnitude, to install 1 terawatt-hour in Europe, we need to hire like 100,000 people. This is massive. Of course, part of it is already hired, but the vast majority is in front of us. So it's a big challenge. Some projects are uncertain due to their funding. We have seen recently that Britishvolt went bankrupt because they were not able to raise the next wave of funding. So we should monitor this carefully. This was mentioned a lot today. Europe has done a good work on installing new battery capacity, but for upstream, most of the work needs to be done. So we have discussed a lot on raw material today, but I think maybe we need to put a special effort on refining metals, because the lead time is much faster than opening new mines. And in parallel, we need to secure access to raw material. And last but not least, within the last 2 years, there is a shift which is significant. IRA is changing the game, and some European projects were cancelled and are moving to North America because the subsidies to install production capacity are just massive there. So you can question whether it will last for a decade, but at least now not only it's massive, but it's quick to obtain the subsidies. Very quickly, when you see the picture, in Europe, 60% of new capacity will be installed by newcomers, and half of the projects are at risk for funding. So it's a very big share. When you look at North America, it's completely different. It's only 20% of capacity which is installed by newcomers, because most of the capacity is within joint venture between the big three and the Korean players. So it's much more secure, and not a surprise. Most of the projects have secured their financing already. So, in summary, to conclude my presentation, Europe has set the vision to converge toward a net zero carbon economy in 2050 with a Green Deal. This was translated into pragmatic targets in 2035 with Fit for 55. Europe has done a lot of effort to install and fund technology and battery capacity with IPCEI. But now we need to accelerate, we need to speed up, and we need to increase the funding, because if we compare to North America and if we compare to what is doing China currently, They are much faster. To give you an order of magnitude, CATL, in the last 2 years, they have installed as much capacity as which is currently available in Europe. So they have a power to accelerate, and China is dominating because 80% of battery cell production is made by China now. If you want to change the game, we need to accelerate. We need to make sure our gigafactories will be funded. We need to make sure that they will be able to reduce production scrap to have significant production capacity. We need to make sure that we have training programs to operate these gigafactories. And we need to prepare for the next round of battery technology to have a technology leadership again, as we had in ICE technology. So I think I need to stop because my time is over. Thank you very much.